you, Chris. Members, good morning and welcome to the 11th day of session, 2025, January the 28th of the 68th Wyoming Legislature. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Convening roll call for the 11th day of session, January 28th, 2025. Alamand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Lean? Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas?
Excused.
Ottman?
Excused.
Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins?
Excused.
Rodriguez Williams? Schmid?
Excused.
Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storer? Strock?
Excused.
Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Worf? Williams? Winter?
Excused.
Wiley? Yin? Speaker Nyman?
Here.
Nicholas? Strock? Schmid? Oh, we're missing two.
Okay, we're going to hold it open just briefly here. We've got a couple of members that are still on their way up. And so, fellow members and guests, I'd like to introduce Pastor Mark Moss of the King of Glory Lutheran Church in Cheyenne, Wyoming, to lead us in the opening prayer. Please rise.
Let us pray. Dear Father in heaven, you have granted us with those in authority, those who are to speak and do what is best for their citizenry. We ask, dear Lord, that you would guide and direct their hearts and minds, that all would be done under your loving hand. May those who gather continue to seek and promote peace and protection and unity as you would give direction, bless their discussion and thoughts and opinions, that all opinions are heard, that discord will be set aside for the betterment of all. We pray this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Moss. Fellow members and guests, join me in the salute to our flag. Are they both here? Representatives, we're going to go ahead and finish the roll. We've captured 2 more representatives to finish out, and while we still have eyes on them, Chief Clerk is going to get them on the roll.
Ottman. Winter. Winter. 61 present, 1 excused.
Thank you, Chief Clerk. Couple of announcements. Second notice of bill cutoff is Wednesday. That's tomorrow, January the 29th. Tomorrow at noon is the final cutoff on the bills. So, ladies and gentlemen, time is of the essence on that. Next for our consideration is the Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of January 27th, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representative Jarvis and Posey.
We've got a special event here coming. The Boys and Girls Club is going to be speaking to us, and they're also speaking to the Senate. They're there right now, evidently, and they will be coming this way. So in the process of waiting for them, we will take a few privileges of the floor, if we can. Representative Smith,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Privilege of the floor.
please.
All righty, in our West Gallery, over here, we have one of Goshen County School District's school board members, Chris Alexander. Let's welcome him to the House.
Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Alexander. Welcome to the House. Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want everyone to look to the North Gallery up here, and then I want you to look to the West Gallery. And Simon says, look forward now. We have a birthday up here on the dais. Our chief clerk has a birthday today, so I want you all Representative Larson, could you lead us in singing our famous birthday song?
Chief Clerk, I hope you do realize how precious you are to all of us, and we appreciate all your efforts and your work. And speaking from my position as Speaker, I could not do this without you. You have been just tremendous, and to be able to celebrate with you on your birthday. And you'll also notice that the good majority floor leader made sure that he made this announcement from as far away from her as he could be, because she's got a fairly deadly reach. And so we recognize that. But we want to thank you for all your efforts, and happy birthday from all of us. We appreciate you so much.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I know I'm short, but may I have the
Now,
privilege
that's not
of
what
the
I
floor?
said. I was looking to the left. Representative Angelos, yes, proceed.
Members of the body, we have the Wyoming Community Service Providers joining us today, and I don't know which gallery they're in. There you are. There's in the west. Don't ask me east-west. But I wanted to introduce them to you. The Wyoming Community Service Providers are a statewide association of providers of home and community-based services for people with intellectual and development disabilities and acquired brain injuries. Collectively, the members of WCSP provide support and services to around 1,000 people with intellectual and development disabilities and acquired brain injuries across the state. They employ 1,200 direct support professionals that facilitate the opportunity for people to live in the least restrictive and most appropriate environment in the community of their choice. Please join them for lunch today in the room W53 and W54. And I want to just state their mission. The mission of WCSP is to provide ethical leadership that promote best practice, innovative, and access to opportunities of choice for persons with disabilities. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you for joining us in the House. Welcome. Any other members' privileges? We're good? Okay. I guess as we wait, we'll go to messages from the Senate.
Message 147. Mr. Speaker, the Senate adopted the Committee of the Whole report, failing the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 18, Enhanced Oil Recovery Severance Tax Exemption. Ayes, 9, noes, 22. This bill has been indefinitely postponed. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Thank you. Reading Clerk. Looks like we've got some activity in the back of the House here, so we'll be getting this ready for you folks here in just a moment. So stand at ease and we will have our special event. Okay. Members of the House, good morning. And this morning we have the honor to welcome some special guests from the Boys and Girls Club. First, we have Dustin Ailport from the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Wyoming, who has recently been elected as the president of the Area Council of the Wyoming Boys and Girls Clubs. We are also joined by Jan Cundy, the National Area Council representative of Wyoming and Montana with the Boys and Girls Club of America. Accompanying her are the 3 outstanding Youth of the Year candidates. Fellow representatives, please join me in extending a warm welcome to these distinguished guests.
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor.
Please,
On
Representative
top
Thayer.
of that amazing information, we also have 6 Boys and Girls Club organizations from all over Wyoming are here to celebrate our youth and at our Youth of the Year event. You have on each of your desks, they have spread kindness to each of you and their version of what kindness is. So each of them made one of these for us. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You're welcome, Representative Thayer.
Thank you.
Thank you all for having us here and let us tell our story of the impact we have across the state of Wyoming. Like was mentioned, up in the gallery, we have CEOs, board members, parents, national staff, and our other 2 from across the state, and we serve over 15,000 youth in Wyoming from these organizations, and they do wonderful work. Jay Sprite is one of our Youth of the Year competitors from Casper. And JC from Douglas is one of our other competitors from the last 2 days. So our 3 youth have spent the last 2 days competing and giving their speeches, finishing off with speeches in the rotunda. and the winner announced. And Dustin is our newly elected area council president, and he lives in Glenrock, and he's from our Casper, Central Wyoming. Aiden is the winner of the Youth of the Year, and he is from here in Cheyenne, and he's with the Boys and Girls Club of Southeast Wyoming, which I'm having a hard time with that rather than Cheyenne. They did a name change. But thank you all for letting us hear, and we're going to hear Aiden's wonderful speech.
It feels like only yesterday that I was in second grade, hearing the sound of a bottle clinking against the counter as my mother muttered nonsense. My younger sisters looked up at me, their eyes filled with confusion and fear. I was only 8, but I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. My father enforced discipline with the precision of a drill sergeant. Mistakes were not just corrected, they were punished severely. Every chore had to be done to perfection. Every rule followed without question. For a child, it felt like I could just never be myself. The Boys and Girls Club of Southeast Wyoming became my escape from the chaos. At home, I had to carry the weight of adult responsibilities, making sure my sisters were fed, completing chores, and trying to manage the unpredictable moods. But at the club, that weight lifted. It became a place where I could just be myself, surrounded by adults I trusted and peers who made me feel seen and valued. The club did not solely become an escape from the storm, though. It became a place where I could dream, explore, and grow. One of my earliest moments of growth came from the lessons in teamwork I learned by playing the club's flag football. On the field, the air buzzed with excitement. Every pass, every touchdown echoed teamwork. Holding that championship trophy was not just about winning a game. It was a moment that said, together, we did this. Years later, I find myself back on that same field, not as a player, but as a coach, standing where my own mentors once stood. Watching my team huddle together, their eyes filled with determination and hope, I saw a reflection of my younger self. Guiding my own team to their championship victory was not just about winning a game. It was passing on a piece of what the club had given me. There was more than just pride in that trophy. It was the joy of seeing my players belong to something bigger, a team, a family. As I've grown through these experiences, I saw firsthand how people from diverse backgrounds could come together and support each other. This unity, despite our differences, is what I believe the world needs more of. This important realization has become the foundation of my passion for addressing polarization. It's easy to focus on divisions, but the real power lies in how we can unite together as a family to create positive change. Throughout the past decade, I've not only come to appreciate my family at home, but the family and future that the Boys and Girls Club of Southeast Wyoming has given me. Through their support, I am IT certified. I've competed in the National We the People competition and been nominated as second team all-conference offensive lineman for Wyoming high school football. But these accomplishments are only the beginning. As I look ahead, I see a future where I could pay it forward by helping others find their own light, just as the club helped me find mine. I pledge to use the lessons that I've learned at the club to make a lasting impact, whether it's through leadership, mentoring, or continuing to bring people together. The community that once helped me become who I am today has now become the foundation for my passion for creating a better tomorrow. Thank you.
So much. Thank you for your effort. Congratulations. That's a great work. Well done. Thank you, Boys and Girls Clubs, for all the work that you do for the state of Wyoming, and it is obvious that it has a incredible impact on the youth of our state. And congratulations again to the award winner, Aiden, and for all of his efforts, and we look forward to his impacts in the state of Wyoming and the other youth that have the opportunity to be able to be blessed by this opportunity with the Boys and Girls Clubs. So thank you for being here. Appreciate all that you do. Representative Washut,
Privilege of the floor.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Up in the North Gallery, my friend and colleague and the interim interim president of Casper College, Brandon Cosine, joined us today.
Majority Leader Heiner,
Mr. Speaker, privilege of the floor, please.
please, by all means.
We have now that we've warmed up our lungs and our hands, we have one more birthday to celebrate. 2 days ago, Carol had her birthday. Carol, step onto the floor, please. Come forward.
Carol Clark, happy birthday.
Representative Larson, would you lead us in another song?
And yes, Carol, that has been recorded. You can play that back as often or as never again if you ever see fit. Carol, thank you so much. And again, just like Chief Clerk Talbot, nothing would happen over here and for Majority Leader and myself or any of us. She takes care of us so well and makes sure that we're on time. Thank you, Carol. We appreciate you, and you're a blessing to me and to all of us. We really appreciate all your efforts and what you do for us. So happy birthday. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, moving on. Introduction and reading of bills. That's where we're at. Get to that page. We are at that order of business of introduction, reading, and reference of bills. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 190.
House Bill 190, sponsored by Representative Lean.
First reading of the bill.
Bond election language process.
House Bill 190 will be assigned to our Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 217.
House Bill 217, sponsored by Representative Lucas.
First reading of the bill.
Random hand count audits of election results.
House Bill 217 will also be assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 228.
House Bill 228, sponsored by Representative Knapp.
First reading of the bill.
Prohibition on private funds for conducting elections.
House Bill 228 will be assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 245.
House Bill 245, sponsored by Representative Knapp.
First reading of the bill.
Pen and paper ballots.
House Bill 245 will also be assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 248.
House Bill 248, sponsored by Representative Baer.
First reading of the bill.
School Foundation Program Interim Budget Authority.
House Bill 248 will be assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 288.
House Bill 288, sponsored by Representative Lean.
First reading of the bill.
Board of Trustees, Systems of Public Recreation Amendments 2.
House Bill 288 will be assigned to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 148.
House Bill 148, sponsored by Representative Rodriguez Williams.
First reading of the bill.
University of Wyoming Governance Elected Trustees.
House Bill 148 will be assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 307.
House Bill 307, sponsored by Representative Pendergraft.
First reading of the bill.
Poll watchers, polling station observation.
House Bill 307 will be assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 150.
House Bill 150, sponsored by Representative Andrew.
First reading of the bill.
Meat processors, composted materials.
House Bill 150 will be assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 285.
House Bill 285, sponsored by Representative Strzok.
First reading of the bill.
Pesticides warning labels.
House Bill 285 will be assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. Next bill for our consideration will be House Bill 286.
House Bill 286, sponsored by Representative Schmid.
First reading of the bill.
Mountain lion hunting season changes.
House Bill 286 will be assigned to our Committee Number 6, Travel. And that concludes the bills for introduction. Moving on to second reading. Oh, yeah, just a minute. Let me get back here. Yes, Standing Committee.
House Bill 31, sponsored by Representative Pendergraft, School Safety and Security. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 31, School Safety and Security, respectfully reports same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Bratton, Erickson, Gugamas, Kelly, Lawley, Singh, Strzok, Williams. Representative Andrew, Chairman.
All right, representatives, bills on second reading. We have one. Oddly enough, we worked on this one for quite a while yesterday, and guess what? We have amendments. I know that's a shock to many of you, but yes, there are 5 amendments as we speak right now, and so we'll see how things progress. So we are on that order of business of bills on second reading. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 199. Amendments. First amendment for our consideration, number 1 is.
I need to read it in.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, that's right.
House Bill 199, sponsored by Representative Andrew, Wyoming Freedom Scholarship Act.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 199 and ask for your thoughtful consideration. So folks, on page 5 here, this is under how the account would be adjusted for inflation. So lines 13 through 17, my amendment would pull out. And here's my reason why. This is a policy decision and a conversation for the body to have. So currently, as another example of a scholarship, our Hathaway Scholarship, those amounts are set in statute, right? And so then we as a body have to go back into that statute to make adjustments for inflation or whatever reason we feel necessary to raise or lower those amounts. That's one example. The other example is our ECA, our external cost adjustment, which is also done each year based on inflation. So that process is a third party evaluates our funding model for schools and that ADM. They give that recommendation to the Joint Education Committee. Then the Joint Education Committee votes up or down or makes adjustments and sends it on to JAC for approval. Then it comes back to this body. So in both of those examples, the inflationary consideration of what we're spending on scholarships and education comes back to this body. And earlier in the session, we heard that we are all appropriators, not just myself. We are all appropriators. It is this body's decision to make adjustments to scholarship levels and funding for education. So this amendment removes that power from our good superintendent who oversees our schools and gives it back to the body. So again, this is a policy consideration. Do we want an automatic inflation adjustment to happen in this bill as presented through our superintendent's office? Maybe, maybe not. Or do we want to retain that power for the body as appropriators? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Representative Sherwood. Representative Andrew, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the bringer that this is a reasonable policy consideration. I personally like that language being in there, but I don't think it hurts the bill either way. Thanks.
Any others for their first time? Man, I can feel a lot of goodness going on right now. Any others? I'll entertain the question. Question being called. Members, you are voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 199. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Moving on to second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 199. Representative Harshman, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd move second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 199. Ask for your favorable consideration, members. You have a handout that just hit your desk. Again, a lot of things were said on the floor yesterday. I think I heard that we're spending over $30,000 per child in public education. And I think if you look at the very smallest districts, and I think one of them is in Sheridan County, that would be true. Because we have made the decision on this board, or this floor, I should say, to not shut down that little town. Because the school is the heart of these little communities. I grew up in small town Wyoming, little town, oil-filled town in northern Natrona County. The school's the heart of the community. Now, could we save a lot of money closing down that school and several schools in the Speakers County and a school in Converse County and Bus? We could cut our schools by probably 100. And, but there goes small town Wyoming. And I didn't get elected to do that. And I don't think any of you did either. So when you hear that $30,000 number that we heard yesterday, that's for the very smallest of small schools. And that number drops to like 13,000 for the bigger districts like the one we're seated in here today. Okay, but back to this amendment, Mr. Speaker. I just want to talk then about how much money is spent in public education and where it goes. So if you'd look at this handout, please, members, just take a look. So it looks like this. You got it there. This is just a breakdown by unit of expenses in public education on average across the state. And you can see the total expenditures, $1.5 billion statewide. Okay, and then salaries, 54% of that. See that 100 series? The next column, $845 million. Then employee benefits, health insurance, so that's 26%, okay? So I think it was said on the floor yesterday, a member from Natrona County said, geez, 80% of the money goes to the people that are working with our kids every day, whether they're bus drivers or nurses or teachers or counselors or principals. Okay, but then you see the next series, 300 and 400, purchase services amount. Okay, and that's 7.36%. So that 80% number going to people is about, and that's really all of state government for the most part. But then you see purchase services, 7.36%, supplies, materials amount, 7.61%. Because Wyoming, we have the best public education system in the world, frankly, and probably the best constitutional model to fund it. It's based on costs. We examine the costs. These aren't, and we're going to go through recalibration again this year. And you go in and you look at the cost of all this stuff and you figure it out. It's not just some number we throw at. And so these are the actual costs. And these are the percentages that are in the funding model. Then capital outlay and other amounts. So you add, Mr. Speaker, the 300 and 400 series, which are services and supplies, which I think we're trying to do in this bill. It's just a shade under 15%. So, Mr. Speaker, and then if you look at the handout, members, that 18,000 I wrote down below, I circled those up, the 300 and 400 series. I circled the percentages, and then you see I wrote on there 15% of 18,700. That is last year's average across the state per pupil, 18,700. Small school, big school. So why would we fund, I guess this is called a scholarship, but why would we fund education this way? We have a cost-based system in Wyoming. We fund education on a cost basis. Well, we can see the cost for materials and services. It's about 15%. So why don't we, I guess it makes sense. I don't know where this $7,000 came from. I don't think any of us do. And is that an average for homeschool costs? Is that an average for, I don't know. But Mr. Speaker, 15% of this 18,700 seems like maybe a defensible number. And then this will rise as costs rise over years. But I think we got to have some idea of what we're actually spending money on, because we are all appropriators. And so, Mr. Speaker, I welcome the debate on this and happy to discuss this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any members for the first time? Representative Kelly for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to answer the question about where these funds would be going to and why I am speaking on and against the amendment. Private providers of education also have to pay salaries and have expenditures, and they have similar cost structures to public delivery of education. So it's not just supplies and services, they also have to have personnel.
Thank you, Representative. Others? Representative Larson, Lloyd, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the last two speakers, when we talked about supplies and services, these services might be mental health services, they could be groundskeeping services, they could be a variety of services. They too have labor costs incorporated in there. Those additional labor costs are part of the business model we contract out for labor.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Jarvis, first time.
Thank you, Speaker. That's covered in purchased services because our, to the representative that just spoke, mental health and special education are all fall under like a 504 and IDEA services, and those are 100% reimbursable. Well, IDEA is 100% reimbursable from the federal government. They cover a lot of those additional expenses because they understand that a school's budget is based on that $18,000 and that there isn't really any allocations for those additional services when our children need them. So they help compensate school districts so that they can run on those types of budgets. Purchased services is exactly that. You are purchasing the services of a professional to come in and provide additional services. So you have purchased services, and then you have supplies and materials accounted for. That is 100% a legitimate ask. I am for this amendment.
Thank you, Representative Jarvis. Any others for the first time? Representative Nicholas, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and in favor of the amendment. So let's think about then the number of students that may participate on these online services. So watching YouTube during the day, 4,000. So that's larger than any high school we have in the state of Wyoming. That means there will be a tremendous economy of scale for these for this online schooling, so that they probably don't need as many dollars just because it's mass produced. I mean, once you've got an online program, it works every year. So you can just play it over again, Sam. And so, so this is probably almost too much money, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. And at least we're trying to rationalize what we're doing and how those funds are being spent with the numbers that there's logic to it versus just throwing a dollar amount against the wall. So honor and in favor.
Thank you, Representative Nicholas. Representative Washut, Chairman Washut, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been a long time supporter of the education savings account, and I really liked last year's bill, but I'm uncomfortable with too much too fast. And I think that the bill as written without this amendment goes from 0 to 60 way too fast. I prefer an incremental approach that gives us an opportunity to see how things shake out. If we're moving in the wrong direction, it's easier to step back. If we're moving in the right direction, we can move forward confidently. And I think this amendment gives us the opportunity to move in the right direction without opening the floodgates. And, you know, for the families out there that are, you know, utilizing private education in a variety of ways that are presently getting 0, this amendment still gives them a considerable piece of assistance to continue with that private education. And I don't think that it's unreasonable for us to slow down a little bit, take baby steps, moving in the right direction, supporting the ESA, but not going to full full bang with the 7,000.
Thank you, Representative Washington. Any others for their first time? First time? Representative Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lowering the amount this much cuts a lot of people out of this program. It limits it to only those who will be able to further supplement from their own funds the amount that is in this ESA program right now. So, in the amendment, I'm sorry. The original amount, the $7,000, will give opportunity to pretty much anyone in Wyoming.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Jarvis.
Thank you, Speaker.
Now, mind you, this is your second time, so you're on second.
Okay. My question is for the Chair of Knowledge specifically. Please give the specifics on how this limits people. Thank you.
Representative Larson, Lloyd, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I too have supported school choice and some of this ESA program last year. And so if the good sponsor of the bill, when he comes back up, would help me understand, what I think I heard him say is that this was going to exclude some people from the program. This bill provides this amount to everybody that applies. So I'm trying to figure out how it would exclude anybody. And then they would have the opportunity to use those funds as they then chose to select an educational opportunity outside the public school model, the way I see it. So I'm not sure how we exclude anybody.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their second time? I have Representative Kelly, Nicholas, Representative Washit, and Andrew. Second time for anyone? Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A couple of points. Appreciate the debate. I think I don't think the intent of this bill was to fund personnel in private institutions. It would make the bill even more unconstitutional. So I think we got to be careful on that. I don't think that's the point. It's about purchasing services. Keep in mind, if you read the rest of this statute, it's not in this bill because it wasn't amended, but folks who receive this money are still under the IDEA requirements. So if you have a child with special needs, you'll still have to follow those requirements. So the federal law will still apply. But I think actually what it does, maybe I don't even want to run this amendment, but it probably helps the bill move closer to constitutional muster because it's cost-based. At least we've got a number that says it's cost-based. And then actually, I think with the $44 million diversion of education funds, it would actually open it up to more people and not less. So encourage your support for the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Harshman. Members, you are voting on second reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 199. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. It's been adopted. Or no, excuse me. The amendment has failed. Division, thank you. Yeah, the chair's in doubt. Yeah, that would be an easy thing to say. Chair's in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. Okay, you may be seated. Those opposed? The motion has not been adopted, 23 to 38. Excuse me, the amendment has not been adopted. Members, we are moving on to second reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 199. Representative Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Second Amendment Number 3 to House Bill 199 and ask for your favorable consideration. This is another amendment that adds certification of our educational vendors back into the bill, and after consulting with the sponsor, I believe we have an amendment here that adds certification and addresses his concerns with my amendment from yesterday. In short, page 1, line 7 deletes eliminating certification, and page 4, line 19 adds certified by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. And in particular, the difference from yesterday is on page 8, line 16, it strikes at minimum. And I look forward to the sponsor helping me to explain how this amendment is better than yesterday's.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Andrew, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and in support of this amendment, what this amendment now does is ensure that these private providers are following what is currently in the law for them to follow, and also codifies the process that the Executive over Education has already approved and established for this certification. Why this is better than the one yesterday is it removes the term at a minimum, which really leaves the door open for a lot of potential regulation that I don't think was even intended by this.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Williams? I don't see anyone else coming. Anybody else for their first time? I don't want to miss anyone. Question, Representative Williams, you're at the podium. Chair recognizes you. Please proceed. Question having been called. Members, you are on second reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 199. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Amendment has been adopted. Moving on to second reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 199. Representative Williams, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Second Amendment Number 4 to House Bill 199 and ask for your favorable consideration.
Mr. Williams, or Representative Williams, it would be second reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 199.
I move Second Reading Amendment Number 4 to House Bill 199. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ask for your favorable consideration. This is the amendment that puts assessments back in the Bill 199. My constituents are very adamant that House Bill 199 be transparent. My constituents need to be assured that their monies are being spent wisely. Assessments make House Bill 199 stronger. This makes us accountable and adds credibility to House Bill 199. I would love to hear from some of you who we didn't hear from yesterday. Are your constituents that much different than mine? Or do they value transparency, accountability, and responsibility from their legislature? I look forward to the conversation, and pursuant to Rule 12.4, I would ask for the ayes and noes.
12-4, we'll need 1 second. Representative Provenza, seconded. Thank you, Representative. Representative Andrew, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am again on it against. I'll again say that the oldest and largest ESA programs in the country don't have this function. They don't require an assessment. But that doesn't mean there isn't accountability. I'm not sure that this is accountability. Accountability is in the fact that spending is controlled by a contract that the parent signs, and then even further controlled by having every expense have to be individually an approved transaction. And again, further by having a required audit of the spending from these accounts. So, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Others for the first time. Representative Jarvis, first time.
Thank you, Speaker. Accountability is not the accountability for being able to track that we took the taxpayers' money. Accountability is, did the taxpayers' money that is earmarked and dedicated to education actually educate the child? If you look at fraud on our lower states, it being around 1%, oh, it's easy to claim that there's no fraud when you're not tracking it. That's really easy to claim. Hey, we gave you a check. That's a government handout. That's a government handout without any way to go back and track if this actually works. So I ask you, what's your fear? You're standing here telling me that all of our homeschools are wonderful, that they do a fantastic job, that our private schools do a phenomenal job. Where's your data? Where's your data that says this, that proves it? I am 100% for school choice. I am not for government handouts with no accountability. I am not for handing taxpayer money that's dedicated to education to handing it to people and saying, we know that they do a good job. Some do, but I assure you, some don't. Because in Natrona, 3 weeks ago, we got an illiterate fourth grader dropped into our class from Wyoming their whole life. And you don't want to track it. Help me understand why. Why? Because where I grew up, in this wonderful home state, we don't give handouts. We don't give handouts. We teach people trades, and we'll help our neighbors out when they hit hard times, but we're not about free handouts, and we're not about giving away money. We're about, let me show you, let me teach you the trade, let me show you how to work. Let me bail you out when you've hit a hard time. I'm gonna help you out. But I'm gonna expect you to stand up and take over, to not be dependent on anyone for the rest of your life. So you remove accountability. You remove accountability in this situation. And I assure you that your data on fraud is gonna be fantastic. It's gonna be perfect. Because how do you prove that fraudulent behaviors are happening? You find me a state that actually does track the accountability and see if that fraudulent behavior is 1%.
Representative Pendergraft, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to talk about accountability. Who holds the school systems accountable? I believe the parents do that. And when you have an exodus, as we've seen in the last few years from the public school system, that's about accountability. It's about parents saying, I don't like the way this is going. I don't like the things you're teaching. I don't like the direction you're taking. I want to go in another direction. The people and the parents are the ones who are ultimately accountable. The children belong to the parents, not the state. The state is not responsible to come in here and usurp the parents. The state's obligation is to offer as a safety net an education to any who wants to go get it from the state. If you don't want to get it from the state, you're still a taxpayer, you're still part of the people. So on and against this amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lean for a first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why removal of the assessment?
Once again, I say, because the assessment requires those that are using this educational opportunity to teach to the test of public education, because that is the only way that they are assessing any value. Furthermore, I put on public education a statistic that I'm happy to forward to all of my colleagues on point, that fourth graders in Wyoming, only 29% of them are on target or above. 29%. I would argue that education in the public sector can do better. So where's your accountability? I also say that ESAs are an account that is held by the state, and you have to get approval through the Department of Education from our superior there for an approved amount on items that are listed within the statute. You don't get a free check. You don't get that money sent to your home. That is just a farce. I just want to speak in favor of ESAs with no assessment, because I'm not going to teach to what I want public education to teach my children if I'm using this ESA account. I want to use it for my individual liberty to offset the cost of educating my children at home. As a property taxpayer, I say that is my right, and I live here, and that should be my opportunity if I'm not using public education and I want to use the ESA funding, that I have the ability to use the curriculum I choose. On and against the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Clouston. Oh, excuse me. Yep, go ahead. Representative Clouston, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question to the Chairman of Education. Can you please provide us with a list of what we're actually paying for? What services and goods? I, as a taxpayer, would like to know what we are actually going to pay for. I understand this program's been used throughout the country, so that list should be readily available for all of us to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Thayer, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also have on this amendment a question for the bringer of this bill. He talked about the audit. My question is, who will be doing the audit? Who is responsible for the audit?
Point of order.
What's your point, Representative?
We are not on the amendment.
So what was, we're not on the amendment as far as the accountability of the audit? Is that what you said, audit or accountability?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bringer of this bill in the statement was that the parents will be audited. I was just getting clarification on.
We're on the amendment right now. We want to speak to the bill. We want to speak specifically to the amendment, and far as and what I'm going to try to keep it is within accountability of that figure and what they are actually being held accountable to. So I would say let's please stay on the amendment at this point, please. Provenza, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Speaker. I just want to correct a few things. We're hearing some numbers about how terrible our kids are doing in schools. Wyoming's public schools ranked top 5 pretty consistently in reading and math for 4th grade. Since 1992, only 6% of states have outperformed Wyoming. So we're doing, in comparison to the rest of the country, our public schools are doing a pretty good job. And so to all the teachers at home listening, I would just like to say thank you for your work.
Representative Connolly, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really would like to just have this bill go back to what it was, the ESA that was put in place last year, have the assessment, and because I really see a need for the ESA funding. But I gotta say, I have not had one constituent from my district ask me to support this bill. Now, they may be being quiet, I don't know, but overwhelmingly, my district is saying, changing this from what it was last year to this year, they're not willing to accept. So I'm in favor of the amendment, and maybe we can get it to where my constituents would be happier with it.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harshman. First time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In second reading, of course, we only get 2 opportunities to speak, so I'm just kind of writing notes of other members, our colleagues on the floor. I think the first thing is, it was brought up by the chairman of committee number 4 about audits. So if you go into the actual statute, it's not in this bill, but 2% are required to be audited. That wasn't somebody on an amendment. That was brought up by the chairman and sponsor of the bill. So I wanted to make sure because you can't see it in the bill, it's in the statute. Another member asked, what can be paid for? He asked the chairman of that committee, and I guess I'll answer that, I guess. I've got a copy of the statute, but tuition and fees at a qualified school, but we've taken the qualification piece out now. So tuition and fees, tutoring services, services contracted for with the school district, textbooks and curriculum, computers. You read around the experience on other states, there's a lot of computer purchases. Software, school uniforms, fees for nationally normed tests, tuition and fee for summer programs, instructional materials at a career or technical school. Now, these don't have to be approved schools, so you could buy a welder or whatever and teach that, I guess. That's what's happened in other states.
Representative Harshman, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to have to.
Okay,
The amendment
Mr.
is about standardized testing.
It is, and I'm just trying to
So-
answer some questions, Mr. Speaker.
As long as there's, in regards to standardized testing, I would
Okay.
be glad to entertain it, sir.
So, and I guess, let's talk about standardized testing, Mr. Speaker. So, and there's about 3 more on that list, but I remember when we first got into standardized testing 15 years ago, and there was a state that has a long river named after it, had 90% of their kids proficient or advanced. And here we are in Wyoming, about 50, 60%. Now, you think about that state, and they're generally ranked as one of the worst K-12 education systems in the country. And they had 90% proficiency. So how does that work? So proficiency, as I've explained other times on this floor, Wyoming sets our own proficiency standards. It's not set by the federal government, it's set on our own standards. Our Constitution prohibits the prescribing of textbooks, so your local elected school boards pick the textbooks. And then this test is on the basics, right? And if you look across the country, there's politics involved in this because you can't have 90% of your kids proficient, Mr. Speaker. So how this works is, I mentioned it last week in here, it's like a high jump contest. So if the 3rd graders in Wyoming high jump 6 foot, next year's 3rd graders are going to have to high jump 6'2". The bar gets raised to keep that around 60% proficient and advanced. This isn't an achievement test like the national tests that juniors take to get into college that measure that. And by the way, we're one of like 15 states that test every junior in their high school. We're number one scores. So this business about 29% of our kids are not meeting. I would just challenge you again to actually go in a 4th grade classroom in this state. Go when they're teaching reading and listen to the kids read. Every kid's reading. The kids on IEPs are reading. Every kid can read. So it's been this tone from the top and a spread of misinformation about what a standardized test is. It's always going to be around 60% or proficient and advanced because the high jump bar keeps getting raised. Okay, if you want to look at how our kids perform against others, that's what we're all interested in. And you think back, go back to the 80s, that president, we started a national test, and it's been going on since the 80s. And it tests our Wyoming 4th and 8th graders reading, math. Many countries also have taken on this test, some that you know that are considered the best in the world. Our 4th graders are in the tops in the world. So we've got the best system, a constitutionally challenged, validated system. People have put thousands of hours and all this work into it. We've got a great system. And so I think it's important to realize that. And so I think, why wouldn't we have when we're giving state money to people? Because we know it's not cost-based. We just come up with a number 7,000. And why shouldn't you have some accountability? Take the test. Let's see if you're proficient. And it's good for the kid to know. And then it can inform the teachers that, hey, I got to do a better job teaching in this area because the kid didn't get it. That's the whole reason for this. So we're going to take $7,000 when it only costs a couple thousand in materials per kid, and then we're going to have no accountability. I don't think any of us ran and knocked on the door. Yeah, I'm going to vote for no accountability with public dollars going to education. I'm going to vote for no accountability. Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Geringer, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I want to focus in a little bit on stewardship. You know, if public dollars are being used, no matter where it's at, we want to have accountability for that. We owe it to our taxpayers to have that accountability. And if we have a problem with the accountability, if we have a problem with the assessments that are being done on our public schools, that's one issue, that's a separate issue, but at least we've identified that issue by those assessments, by whatever issues that may have been brought up by that. Likewise, if there are issues with accountability in the ESA, we need to know that. We need to be able to help fix that. But with no measure, we have no accountability. So I'm trying to understand. And so I guess I would also flip it the other way. If we have a problem with accountability, why not take it away from the public schools? Why do we do the assessments on the public schools?
Thank you, Representative Geringer. Representative Ottman for first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a few comments. Number one, as far as the assessments go, from working in the school district for 17 years and just listening to the conversations over the months in meetings, the reason that the assessments are there is to relegate figure out what is the best way. Well, since we're in Cheyenne and they are all over the state, they form testing. But I think, at least in the experience that I have had, that the majority of educators will agree that the tests are very, very lacking, that there is something that needs to be done. Nobody is real sure what it is. As far as the block grants, or as far as the just doling out money and not knowing what it's going for. The block grants that go to the school districts are based on personnel and whether or not they will have a superintendent or two, how many teachers they'll have, if they'll have a curriculum director, all of these different things that are deemed important to a specific district and by each district, and then the block grant. Those block grants then are
Representative Ottman, I think we're getting off the amendment.
Okay, sorry.
So let's please stay on the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment as far as testing and as far as accountability, I see that there is actually districts are individual and they will give. I mean, we have good people here in Wyoming, and people that are running these districts, if you look at the schools and you look at the children and you look at the results in those communities. Somebody mentioned parental, for school districts and for elections. So it's there. But I just wanted to mention too, real quick, and this is off, but I'm going to say it anyway. As far as being the best in the world, we're 15th to 16th out of participating countries with, so 15th out of 58. So not number one, but above half. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Jarvis. Second, and wait a minute, before Representative Jarvis goes, are there any other members that would like to speak to this amendment for their first time? Representative Campbell, if you want to find a mic. Representative Campbell for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In regard to the standardized testing, again, my question is, I hear from educators how everything's standardized and we're holding everybody accountable. I worked in the directional drilling industry, and it is my experience as far as standardization that the state of Wyoming is sending out high school graduates that cannot read, that cannot do simple math, that cannot tell time on a chronological clock. This is very concerning to me. If our standards are so great and our programs are doing so good, why can our kids not do math? Why can our kids not read? Why can our graduates not tell time? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Jarvis. Oh, no, I can't go you. I've got other people. Representative Stivar, please. Oh, thank you, Representative Stivar. Representative Knapp, first time.
Education is very important to our society, and this deals with standardized testing. And yet our state, in just reading the Assessment Reduction and Efficiency Plan, which reduces state math testing in grades 3 through 12, removes the third grade writing assessment. As I understand it, we're reducing our own testing in public education now because our highest person at the top has said we need more time for learning and less testing. When it comes to homeschooling, it may be because a parent wants to reinforce the Constitution. They may have a line of requirements for themselves that follow along with school guidelines, but are weighted in certain areas that they deem important as an individual, using our tax money, their tax money, to do it, to educate their child. So we talk about fraud, which is unusual. Someone mentioned fraud. In public schools, I don't see where we hold somebody accountable for students receiving an F. Is that fraud? I don't see where we hold somebody accountable for a student that drops out of school. Is that fraud? And I don't see anything for a non-graduate. I don't believe that's fraud either. So it's important to realize that every child deserves to be educated, and there are different standards between districts, there's different standards between communities, and there's different standards between a homeschooler. They're still being educated. They're still accountable.
Thank you, Representative Knapp. Any others for their first time? Any others for their first time? Seeing none. Second time, Representative Jarvis, second time.
Thank you, Speaker. All right, we're going to talk data. One representative alluded to that we're 15th in the world. That's the US. The US is 15th in the world, not Wyoming. The US is 15th in the world, right? Well, here, according to fourth grade, because we just heard a number out there, 26%, I'm going to set the story straight, and you all have access to this. That assessment that Harshman was talking about, it's NAEP.
We do not use proper names.
That assessment, you can look it up. It starts with a, can we, nope, I'll just leave it alone. The national assessment that's used to measure states against states, for fourth grade, 26% is not the case. Guess what? Fourth grade for our NAEP, Wyoming is number 2 in the nation for math. And Wyoming is number 3 in the nation for reading. Reading and math. We're not talking about whether we want to teach a constitution or whether we want to teach religion or what you want to teach your child when you're home. These assessments assess math, reading, writing, and science. They assess math, reading, writing, and science. And if those aren't important in a child's education, I'm not really sure. Now let's talk Wyoming, because my good representative from the same county as he is correct. The YTOP, or nope, I can't say that either, sorry, retract it. The assessment that we use in our state is according to how our students do against each other. It is a measurement. And when we're talking proficiency, our fourth graders in 2024, in math, 54% of our fourth graders are proficient. Science, 52% of our fourth graders are proficient. And ELA, 49% of our fourth graders are proficient. That's this year. And then you compare that to the NAEP. Second and third in the nation. People, we're not failing. Our schools aren't failing. I wouldn't go as far as saying that everybody's reading, but we're not failing, and we're working on it, and we're working on just getting better. And by the no accountability, that allows children to slip through the cracks. And so I urge you that if we're going down this route of offering school choice, everybody who takes taxpayer money should be held accountable. You don't want to be held accountable? Don't take the scholarship money. You don't want to take an assessment that shows that your child can read, write, do arithmetic. Don't take the money. But if you're going to take the taxpayers' money that is dedicated to education, prove you're educating your child.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Lean? Nope. Representative Pendergraft, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of talk about standards, math, English, science, etc. I'll tell you, even if the schools were at the top of the notch in the world on those basic items, the culture and the direction of education, some people will object. I said earlier that the people are not accountable to the state. The state is accountable to the people. And when the people do not like the direction of the attitude or the culture within the public system, they have that right to step away.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for their second time? Second time? Seeing none, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, everyone, for sharing your expertise and your perspective and your opinions on this amendment and this issue. And I would remind you that this amendment was requested by the executive that oversees our public education, and I would urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Representative. Members, you are voting on second reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 199. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Allemand? No. Andrew? No. Angelos? No. Banks? No. Bear? No. Brady? No. Bratton? No. Brown, Gary? No. Brown, Landon? Aye. Byron? Aye. Campbell, Elisa? Aye. Campbell, Kevin? No. Chestick? Aye. Clouston? Aye. Connolly? Aye. Davis? Aye. Eklund? Aye. Erickson? Aye. Filer? Aye. Geringer? Aye. Guggenmoss? No. Haroldson? Haroldson,
Excused.
Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, excused, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Wharf, Williams, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Speaker Nyman. Are there any changes? Haroldson, excused 2. No. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 25 aye, 36 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have chosen not to adopt the second reading amendment number 4 to House Bill 199. Next amendment for our consideration, second reading amendment number 5 to House Bill 199, Representative Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These are the same issues we've kind of just debated, so I'd respectfully withdraw second reading number 5 to House Bill 199.
Hearing no objection, it has been withdrawn. Is that? House Bill 199 having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. We have our 3rd reading consent list. We are at that order of business of bills on 3rd reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the 3rd reading consent list consisting of the following 2 bills, House Bill 39 and House Bill 92.
Does any member wish to remove any one of the bills from the consent list? Any bill? Okay, will the reading clerk please read the bills on the consent list?
House Bill 39, sponsored by Revenue, Property Tax Refund Program Revisions, an act relating to property tax. House Bill 92, sponsored by Agriculture, Wyoming Livestock Board Memorandums of Understanding, an act relating to the Wyoming Livestock Board.
Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Allemand, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Brady, Bratton, Brown Gary, Brown Landon, Byron, Campbell Elisa, Campbell Kevin, Chestick, Clouston, Connolly, Davis, Eklund, Erickson, Feiler, Geringer, Guggenmoss, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Heft, Jarvis, Johnson, Kelly, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Lean, Locke, Lucas, McCann, Nicholas, Ottman, Pendergraft, Posey, Provenza, Riggins, excused, Rodriguez Williams, Schmid, Sherwood, Singh, Smith, Storer, Strock, Stivar, Tarver, Thayer, Washut, Wasserberger, Webb, Weber, Wharf, Williams, Winter, Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker? Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 61 aye, 1 excused. As for House Bill 39, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 61 aye, 1 excused. As for House Bill 92, are there any changes? Eklund, aye to no. Provenza, aye to no. Further changes? Further changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 59 aye, 2 no, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bills 39 and 92 have passed the House. Next, for our consideration is third reading bills on regular third reading bills. We have one bill to be considered. Reading clerk.
House Bill 259, sponsored by Appropriations, Supplemental K-12 School Facilities Appropriations 2, an act relating to school building and facility projects.
We have one amendment. Representative Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to bring third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 259. And folks, this is just a continuation of our back and forth on the funding of the Campbell County High School. This amendment would, what we currently have in place is the good representative from Coal Country's amendment on second reading that puts about half of that funding in place. This amendment would cancel that, would delete that, and put the full funding in place. I want to give a couple of explanations that we talked about yesterday, help you clarify that, and then help you understand a little more why I think we ought to do that. And I think the most important thing for us in looking when we fund capital construction in schools and when we're appropriating funds of any type on capital construction, or we say, what we prioritize them, what are the most important things that we do? Those of you that are in business, you have to prioritize with the funds you have available those things that are most important. And those generally involve some legal consequences if you don't pay them, right? Are there legal consequences if we don't build the school and we don't fund it right away? Potentially. We're currently seeing that being debated right now. We have a statutory requirement, a law that mandates that we build these schools. Now, some of the other things that we've considered thus far in bills in past don't have a statutory requirement. They're valid and they're good. But as far as priority, I just argue that this should be a higher priority than some of the other things that we considered. Yesterday, there was some conversation about can we or can we not just build this high school in phases. We said yes, we said no, and I would come back that both of those answers are correct. And in it, the easiest answer is if we're going to build, if we just have this singular building out there and we want to build it, can we do that in phases of money? And the answer to that's no. You can't start on that one building without it being fully funded per statute. But if we have two buildings, and in this one, we've got a high school, we've got a transportation building, then we have demo of a high school and transportation. There's potentially four things there, four different exercises. Could we then, with the money we have, bid one out and get it going and complete it while we're waiting on the other funds? Yes, that would be the phase-in approach. Here's the problem that the Department of Construction has taught us over the years, is that when you bid out, if you think about bidding out 4 different sections, you're going to get one completed, The contractor's going to mob onto site, mob off a site. Then we bid the other, we remob, we demob, we bid the next one, we mob, we demob. What we've done then is we've taken their estimated cost for doing the whole project, and we've just added cost to it because of the phase-in approach and the ongoing mobilization and demobilization and just the bidding process that goes into place. I think that we all recognize that the term used time is money on construction. There's, there's some valid argument to say materials have been fluctuating a little. Certainly they've come down since the pandemic when we've seen shortages. But if you've looked at the cost of such thing as aggregate and concrete, they haven't come down. They've gone up and really have offset other costs. And so as we'd expect, we see those costs continuing. As an example, when we get to our capital construction bill, you're going to see that we approve the veterans home, the construction of the domiciliary for our veterans in the land of the bisons. $79 million, okay? I have to apologize for that. We should have done that 4 years ago when the price was about 40 million. That's what delaying these things does. So the money that we could have saved had we built that veterans home would have taken care of all of these component projects this year. So for practical, for legal, we know the necessities. Nobody's arguing that at this point. For the efficiencies of this project, it doesn't make sense to me to not just bite the bullet, get it funded, and move it forward. So, Mr. Chairman, that's what this bill does, is it brings back in the full amount to build the high school, build the transportation facility, to do the demolition on the high school, and do the demolition on the transportation, and then, of course, add to those contingencies fees that we note on page 5. Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Representative Pendergraft, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment, I'm reminded of the old expression, give me an inch and I'll take a mile. I mentioned before the financial uncertainty until we decide exactly what we're going to have left with the property tax issue. We did go ahead and throw another $4 million at this to keep the wheels rolling, so to speak. I look at, as a person who's been in construction my entire life, I look ahead and think that with the current administration, we're probably in some pretty good shape as far as inflation goes. That should minimize that. And I do thank the former speaker for bringing up those points. That is a valid concern. And when you delay something year after year after year, it just gets more and more expensive. Looking ahead, that does not particularly bother me to push this back for about a year. It's hard to say no, especially when there's a need, and especially when it's your responsibility. I understand that. But at some point, we've got to draw a line. We've got to start putting the brakes on. We've got to stop saying, let's slow down the rate at which we've been building. We've been building at a breakneck pace for many years. We've had things good. We've done some great things with that, and I'm pleased with that. We just need to slow it down now to make sure that in the long term, we don't get ourselves into trouble. So I'm asking you to go back. Remember, when we first voted on this, there were 17 ayes, and the rest of us voted against it. I'm asking you to consider that, to be a representative, a person of your word, and stick with what we said in the first place. It's hard. It's hard. You're going to get emails and people are going to be upset, but you know what? Anytime you try to cut anything, you're going to get emails from people that are upset. It is hard to cut, but we have to do the hard work.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Bear, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I voted to keep the school on the original bill. I was outvoted in committee. I voted and I brought an amendment to put the school back in on committee of the whole. I supported the measure for half pay. I'm in support of this bill again. Again, this is a decision of this body, as the previous speaker said. But as the bringer of this amendment pointed out, we have delayed construction in the past on different projects, and sometimes we regret that. I think this is one of those ones we'll probably regret. So I'm on and for it, and I think, you know, we're going to be looked at in the future based on what we did, whether it was to save the money and then create a situation where we have to pay more later, or whether we got the construction done. So I just ask that the body look at, you know, what are we going to, is there a need there? Obviously, there is. So why delay? Let's get it done and let's move on. I do want you to think about future projects are going to end up in the same situation. So make that hard decision, on and for the amendment.
Thank you, Representative Bear. Representative Nicholas, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On in favor of the amendment. And this concept of give them an inch and they take a mile. I don't think so, ladies and gentlemen. Give us a high school that works. Doesn't have anything to do with an inch or a mile. It has something to do with doing the right thing. And so what has transpired over the last 30 years? Really, 22 years. We stopped building schools through the 1990s. Why did we stop building schools? Because we couldn't afford it. When we finally started getting back on track around 2000, 2002, we had 2 or 3 years in a row where we had $1 billion, one time $2 billion in excess revenues. And then we went on a school building march to replace all of the schools that we could when we didn't have the money. So let's look ahead, and that's why we have the good schools that we do today around the state. But we also then, as we went through that process, now as it slowed down over time, every year, in order to maintain quality schools, we know we have to spend between 160 to 200 million a year to keep up with our schools. We have something like 474 structured schools around the state of Wyoming, all in a certain state of disrepair over time. So when you do the math on how we have to keep our schools afloat and state-of-the-art and as much as we can afford, that's what we have to spend, 150 to 200 million a year. That's just the simple math of it. That buildings don't last as long as they used to, and the ones that do are not really fit for teaching. And they're huge, like the one that we're talking about now. And a couple of you see the old structures around this community. They're not good for, they're used for different things now. But the square footage was just monstrous because it was a different era back then. So we're not taking an inch and giving a mile. We are following the process that we created over the last 10 years to continue construction so we stay ahead of the game. And so by delaying this a year or 2 years, we're delaying every other school on the other side of this, even further out. And then if you look at the long-term financial forecast for funding of education and for funding of schools, it starts declining in 3 or 4 years, 6 years. So we're going to be in that same predicament we were back in the 90s, where we're not going to be able to build the schools, particularly high schools, because they are by far the most expensive, 3 or 4 times more than a grade school or a middle school. Unfortunately, when they have to do so many of them, and we're doing one down in Sweetwater County now. And then we have this one coming up in Campbell County. And there's not another one on the near horizon. But when it does, that's going to be another $150 million ask when it happens. And when their time's up, we need to do it. The idea that we can simply delay it, you're just taking $11 million out of your pocket, our pocket, and flushing it down the toilet. Now that is not economic realization, and it's not good sense with our monies. And the last thing we need to do is not build the proper high schools for our kids. Ladies and gentlemen, the most important thing that we do down here is taking care of our families and our children and their future and their kids' future. So, on in favor of the amendment.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Angelos, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So on and for the amendment, I think this is the third time this has been brought that we voted for it. I just wanted to address my colleague and from Sheridan County, and we disagree on this, but I don't look at this is where we make a cut. He mentioned that we do have to cut, and that is true in some parts of our budget. But when an emergency with a school, that is not where we cut. We need healthy buildings for our children to learn. And this would be the last place. I don't think any of our children, we would want them in something. Talking with a staffer from the school, the toilet was overflowing yesterday while we were debating on the floor. It was overflowing down the hall. So it is an issue. And I want to push back on a new administration means less inflation. And yes, it does, and we are thankful for that. And with that, that also means that we have an administration that's pro-energy, and that's going to add money back into our state coffers as we drill, baby, drill, and mine, baby, mine. And that means that there will be more money to build the school. And this school it's down the road. I understand, like, they're not even going to be bidding till winter time. But with lower inflation coming up potentially, I mean, we're hearing this from our current administration, a lower administration means that the building costs will be lower, and any additional funds that are not used to build this do revert back to the state. So this is the perfect time to pass this. I'm on and for it, and thank you for supporting us.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Knapp, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. I just also would like to take the opportunity to thank Body. I know that we're in support of this school, and the vote was almost unanimous in just giving us that half construction cost. So getting us the full cost is great, and I was comforted to hear the good chairman of the person who gets our budget ready for us to be able to find that money. And if we get over to the other side of the hall and need to come back down again, we can. But I just appreciate the.
Thank you, Representative Knapp. Representative Harrelson, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I guess I would like to ask a question of the bringer of the amendment and at the same time make a statement. So level 2, that's where we're at. We don't have an asbestos abatement report. I mean, I understand the Mercer study. I got to see the videos yesterday. This school needs replaced. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that statement. But I do also know this, that we're not at level 3, we're at level 2. It isn't like they need the money tomorrow to start the construction this spring. This is still going to be a process out. I believe we've put a placeholder in there. We're serious about this. The cash flow issue right now, as we're looking at our accounts, is a concern. And so are we at a point in a place where we should take and say, you're at level 2, we've given you the money to move into the level 3 and make this go down the road, and we'll finish funding it next year. So that'd be my statement. The question that I have is, what would hold us back from doing that plan? They can still go out for bids, from what I gather, and I believe. And is this something where if we only fund half of this, it isn't like they're not ready, they don't have the bids in hand, where we are actually going to hold up construction? Because that's what I keep hearing, but I don't see that with our timetable and with where we're at. And so if I'm wrong, I'd like to hear about that. But it'll get us from level 2 to level 3. It'll get to a point where we have those reports that we need. They can go out to the bid process, and we have a very clear picture of exactly what we need to fund next year as we move forward. So that's my heart, and if I'm completely off on that, please help me understand better.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Tarver, for your first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'll try not to ramble on like I usually do. I'm on and for this. We can either spend a lot now or more later. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tarver. Thanks for keeping it close and short. Yeah. Representative Clouston, for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can't be that quick. So, I'm thankful for a lot of things. I'm thankful for your vote yesterday, supporting our community and our school. I'm thankful for this discussion, and I'm thankful for the bringer of this amendment, his concern for our community, for this school, but also how we approach future schools. And I really appreciate his discussion on how delaying has affected our veterans' home. I think this is the prudent approach. I would feel a lot better if the money was set aside and designated fully for this school. Again, I really do appreciate yesterday's vote. Again, just thank you for your support on this.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Brown, Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to cut wasteful spending. This is not wasteful spending. Wasteful spending would be waiting for another year and spending another $11 million for the exact same thing that we can appropriate for today. A placeholder, the money in the coffers, everything ready to go. I don't see the representative that asked the question, allows for the project to commence, provides the money to the department within the state that handles this construction to let the bid, get under contract, and get moving. We put half of it in, they can let the bid for half of the project. But if you're a contractor, ask yourself this question. Am I going to bid on a project that I'm only going to get half paid for right now? Am I going to put something together that I'm only going to get half the money? Maybe I have to rebid another project and my prices go up and now I don't get the secondary bid. That's why we're doing this. I'm going to come back to where I was yesterday on this exact same topic. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not supposed to be a political battle. This is not supposed to be battled on the floor. We have a commission. It was vetted through the process. That's what I've heard over the past 4 years I've served on this committee, is follow the process. Follow the process. If you follow the process, we'll fund it. We'll do what we're supposed to do. You do the process, we'll do it. Ladies and gentlemen, they have followed the process. So have all of the other projects that are out there. The component level funding, I don't see us stripping anything out of those. I don't see any of the major maintenance being stripped out. Why? Because they followed the process. These were the recommendations brought forward by the department to the commission, vetted at a non-political level, and brought to this body for approval, not debate and held hostage. I cannot ask you any more than I already have. The original bill that was brought forward had this bill in it, had this appropriation in it. It was done by a joint committee, a select committee, equal parting, both the Senate and the House. So I wish I could be any more eager to tell you that this is not what I love to do, is come up here and ask for $100 million, but I will tell you this is the last major high school we have to build in this state right now. There were 3 last year. What's really nice is we had a Mercer study done on this community. It identified that we can actually fix the one that was going to be needed in this community for overpopulation. We can fix that with a small addition. That's what this community decided to do. We funded the other one on the west side of the state last year. This is the last major high school that we have on our docket. We have the money. Let's take care of the kids.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Majority Leader Heiner, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of us came here for this session as it began. We saw this the supplemental budget that was submitted by our executive officer. And we came here thinking, we're gonna reduce that. That's outlandish for a supplemental budget to be so high. We're gonna go away, we're gonna cut some of that. We're gonna show the people that we came here with a serious mandate to reduce spending. I just want to point out, even if we do reduce that supplemental budget, all of the money this year are in the bills. We have almost $1 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion of spending in bills so far. So when we aggregate everything together and we go home, what will we tell everyone? Yeah, we cut the supplemental budget, but we spent $1 billion in bills. Is that going to be something that we want to hold our head up about? Now, with the money that we've got appropriated so far, the design and engineering for this high school will go forward. It will not slow it down. Inflation, in my opinion, is going to come down with the new administration we have. I'm not threatened by cost increase, cost creep over the next year. I think it's going to come down and be more reasonable. So, and I would just let everyone know that we are putting money in bills that far outpaces what we're trying to cut in our spending in supplemental budget. Thank you.
Any other members for their first time? No members for their first time, second time. Speak to this amendment for a second time. Representative Nicholas, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Folks, I just want to remind the body, and we talked about this a few days ago. There is a supplemental budget that for our biennial budget on the general fund side. On the education side, we don't work, particularly in capital construction, we do not work with a biennial budget. So this is not a supplemental request. This is an annual request as provided by the statutes. And so every year, not every other year, we look at school capital construction. So if the good folks on appropriations want to address other supplemental issues in the supplemental budget and want to reduce that expenditures, that's fine. But this is not that, this is apples and oranges, ladies and gentlemen. Apples and oranges. You got the school side and you got school construction. And typically it stands alone or goes in the budget, but however it is, we do it every year. And so this is not inflating the supplemental budget, which is generally on the general fund side. And so where's this money going to come from? If you look at the long-term forecast, we have about $760 million in the SFP if you add the reversions. And that's where this money will come from. And those reversions and that dollars in there are one-time funds. And so and we've set it up that way to specifically pay for these types of projects. So, and that, by the way, that number goes down over on the long-term forecast. So we put ourselves, the more we put this off down the road, the more at risk of this school not being built. And I would respectfully submit there's not one of you, if you had this high school in your district, you'd be up here pounding the dang table trying to get this paid for. And so in terms on the school side, I implore you to put yourself in their position and support this school.
Thank you, Representative. Second time, Representative Pendergraft, for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Those on the other side of this issue have spoken eloquently and they've spoken truthfully. When I look at this, and I think the good majority floor leader put it very well, should this pass, we need to take a good hard look at the rest of what we're doing throughout this session. We all want to give people a property tax relief. This is affected by that. About half of that $1 billion, I believe, is in property tax relief. There's two sides to every coin. Can't have your cake and eat it too, and I could go on for that. You vote your conscience on this, I encourage you to do that. But just understand that if this passes, we've got to be very, very careful with what we've got left and how we handle the tax relief. It's a two-edged sword.
Thank you, Representative. Any others for the second time? Seeing none, Representative Larson. Yes, Representative Larson, we can all smell what's in that other room, so just saying, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A wonderful debate, because I think the issue really finally settled to the surface. When I first brought this amendment, I says we prioritize, and we prioritize on what the impacts may be on us as a state. Are there legal, are the statutory requirements which really support the construction of this building? Or do you put other priorities, whether they be political or constituent driven, that don't have a requirement in front of them? Boom, property tax versus funding this school. There we are. Now, I think there's still some property tax work can be done, but I don't think you can put it above our statutory requirement to build this school. Now, to answer the good Pro Tem's question, the abatement study hasn't been done, but having the funds, once the abatement study is done, to get started, even as we have done at the State Hospital and Life Resource Center, to start doing that abatement, even though the facilities are inhabited, is efficient and saves time. To level 2 is design, level 3 is construction. We've seen with the construction of schools in other state buildings that we've tried to have level 2, level 3 be funded at the same time, because there's an efficiency in when they get those designs done, that then you don't have to wait for another construction cycle to let the bids and have the funds to start it. It's not a cash flow problem. We talked about, even if we elected, so we have the backstop for this with the LSRA. Now, you may not like that it takes it down, but to imply that we can't do that, and that's why we have a savings account. That's why you have a savings account at home. When your wife comes home and the tires are bald and 3 of them are flat, and you just really didn't want to replace them, and you don't have, maybe things are a little tight, you've got those shekels rat holed away in the mason jar to take care of those emergencies. And that's what the LSRA was for, is to help us when we're short of funds. And so, but interestingly, the governor, when he put his budget together, take into consideration the supplemental requests, and he focused on the supplemental budget, requiring the agencies to really focus on emergency things. But per the good representative from down here in the capital city pointed out that these capital construction projects are included in the budget, but come from a different requirement, that we look at those every year. So the governor had it in his budget, and it's balanced. He funded it. It was pulled out so that we could do other non-budget things, if I'm understanding correctly. Given each take mile, I think would suggest that we're abusing the generosity of voting for this second reading amendment. I would say pillage and plunder when you pulled the whole thing out to begin with. I'd also, talked about an old adage. I remember one my dad used to say, which was get your butt out of bed and get to work. And that's what I think we need to do on this thing. Just get up, suck it up, and get it done. Are we men of our word? As was suggested, we need to be. Well, if we say statutorily if we say to our school districts, based on statute, that if you qualify for the construction, if you do everything that you're supposed to, you'll get it. Are we men of our word or not? Put on the brakes. What is there on this project that would warrant us putting on the brakes? I'm not saying that. This is a project that needs to be funded, and let it move through the normal process. The good chairman of transportation pointed out that this is the last large high school, but colleagues, this isn't the last school. Maybe the last high school, but it's not the last school. And we'll keep having these conversations moving forward. I just in the process that this body functions under, not funding this just is an anomaly and just doesn't fit how we traditionally have done business with schools. And so appreciate the debate, appreciate the opinions, and would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Members, you are being asked to vote on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 259. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The amendment has been adopted. All right. House Bill 259 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Brady? Bratton? Brown Gary? Brown Landon? Byron? Campbell Elisa? Campbell Kevin? Chestick? Clouston? Connolly? Davis? Eklund? Erickson? Filer? Geringer? Guggenmoss? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Heft? Jarvis? Johnson? Kelly? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Larson JT?
Excused.
Lawley? Lean?
Excused.
Locke? Lucas? McCann? Nicholas? Ottman? Pendergraft? Posey? Provenza? Riggins, excused. Rodriguez Williams? Schmid? Sherwood? Singh? Smith? Storr? Strzok? Stivar? Tarver? Thayer? Washut? Wasserberger? Webb? Weber? Wharf? Williams? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Mr. Speaker. Larson, JT? Excused? To aye. Are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote? Vote closed. 59 aye, 1 no, 2 excused.
House Bill 259 having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 259 has passed the House. Mr. Chief Reader. Yep, standing committee reports, yes.
House Bill 169, sponsored by Representative Eklund, cultivating meat prohibition. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 168, Cultivated Meat Prohibition, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Davis, Eklund, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strzok, Winter. Noes, Representative Johnson. Representative Winter, Chairman. House Bill 181, sponsored by Representative Larson Lloyd. Funeral contracts, investments, and bonding requirements. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3, Revenue, to whom is referred House Bill 181, funeral contracts, investment, and bonding requirements. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Campbell, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Storer, Stivar, Wharf. Excuse, Representative Riggins. Representative Locke, Chairman. House Bill 218, sponsored by Representative Locke. Public Utilities stays during resolution of lawsuits. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3, Revenue, to whom is referred House Bill 218, Public Utilities stays during resolution of lawsuits. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Campbell, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Stivar, Wharf. Noes, Representative Storer. Excuse, Representative Riggins. Representative Locke, Chairman. House Bill 221, sponsored by Representative Ottman. Bighorn and domestic sheep relocation, effective date repeal. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 221, Bighorn and domestic sheep relocation, effective date repeal. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Davis, Eklund, Johnson, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strzok, Winter. Representative Winter, Chairman. House Bill 246, sponsored by Representative Stivar, Wyoming Wednesday. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3, Revenue, to whom is referred House Bill 246, Wyoming Wednesday. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Campbell, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Storer, Stivar, Wharf. Excuse, Representative Riggins. Representative Locke, Chairman.
Thank you, Reading Clerk. Committee announcements. Representative Byron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee number 6, Travel, will meet in 15 minutes in Extension Room 5 to hear 211, continue 211, House Bill 275, Treatment of Animals, and if time allows, House Bill 4, Snowmobile Registration and User Fees.
Thank you, Chairman Byron. Representative Chairman, excuse me, Chairman, I can't get off that mic. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 2, Appropriations, will meet in E301 and online. We will meet at 12:20. Right, rapid from now. Joint Appropriations Committee will be meeting to receive a staff walkthrough, vote for sponsorship of the supplemental budget bill, House Bill 1. And additionally, committee number 2 in the same room will meet upon adjournment, and we will finish discussion on House Bill 238, ballast harvesting prohibition.
Thank you, Vice Chair Pendergraft. Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, will meet at 12:30. Get some food and head down there. We'll be hearing 3 bills, House Bill 34, House Bill 242, and House Bill 237 in the Extension Room 003.
Thank you, Transportation Chairman Brown. Any other announcements, committee announcements? Seeing none, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand in recess until 2:15.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. House will stand in recess until 2:15.